When I was in my late 20s, I visited my sister in Boston because she was going to school there. I didn't realize Salem was around 2 hours north, I think. So I decided on a whim to go up there. It was around in October, November, and walk around at night with my sister and just get a feel for the history of the witch hunting. Witch hunting was about very intelligent or crafty women being oppressed by disempowering religious systems to the point where they were murdered. This video is not about that. This video is about the ghost pictures I got in Salem. I didn't see anything at the time. I was walking around and I was not scared. I remember taking pictures of this ship that was somehow related to the Mayflower or some of the first ships that came up here. So I took pictures of this ship that was made in the 1700s. I didn't really think anything of it at the time. I was taking pictures of everything. But I was actually scared a week later when I looked at the pictures and saw 5 or 6 apparitions on them of ghosts that I didn't see at the time. The ship was completely normal when I took the picture. I did it with a Canyon Rebel camera because this was before everybody was using cell phones as cameras. So I had a semi-professional camera that I was using where it would do a double click and take the same picture in split seconds. The first picture has a very strange light that is going down into the bird cage. I think that's what you call it, that part of the ship. The second picture, taken a split second later, has a full light body of a man. And I can also see other pictures. I see a woman on the left. I see a man smoking a cigar off the ship. So I don't know if those are easy to make out, but for everybody that has seen these pictures that I've showed, like my friends and the people I knew, there is no mistake. This is a light body of a male figure in the birdcage at the top. I had chills when I looked at this picture. I was like, holy shit, ghosts exist. They're real. I have always sort of believed in them, but to me, this was confirmation that ghosts exist. I had some experience in the past with ghost hunters, my own experience with shadow people and beings in a haunted apartment that I had. That was a whole nother story for probably a whole nother video, where I lived in a old apartment building that was across the street from a Rockefeller mansion right outside Chicago, and it was on an oil refinery town. I had experienced a lot of hauntings there. People that visited me had paralysis in a particular room, which I had as well. I'm not going to share that story because that's a little bit different from this one. But my point is that I use this picture and the photo as confirmation that there were ghosts and the ship was haunted. Well, this leads me further back. In my early 20s, I met a man who had a master's in physics. He also, on the side as a hobby, was on TV for ghost hunting. His hobby was to explain what people perceived as paranormal in scientific ways. This wasn't to disprove that ghosts didn't exist, but it was to kind of show the physics behind it and that some of this stuff was actually just explainable through physics. But some of it wasn't, and he acknowledges he believed in ghosts. I'll never forget this because this is what made me change my perception of all the ghost encounters I'd ever had in my life. He had a group of around 10 to 20 people gather in the middle of a forest at night and described a ghost to them. He said, there is a man here that is a ghost that people see. He dances. He's wearing shorts. He's husky. He has blonde hair. And he said, if you guys all gather in this circle, we can all capture this ghost or see it. But this was actually completely made up. Nobody had ever seen this ghost before. He put this idea into not a mass meditation, because a mass meditation is like thousands of people, but a group meditation of around 10 to 20 people, just to prove that if they all focused on this image of a dancing man in shorts with blonde hair that was husky, they could, with their own thoughts, create a light body that the photo could capture. The group did not see anything, but he took pictures, and in the picture, there was a full light body of a man in shorts with blonde hair, almost in a light body form, like a yellow-orange light body that was dancing in the center of the circle. I remember seeing this picture and thinking, wow, this is a ghost. I knew ghosts existed. But he told me later that this was an experiment and that this ghost did not exist. It was an experiment to see what people could create just based on their thoughts. They can create their own gods and ghosts. This stuff can come up in photos as apparitions, but it is nothing other than a light body created by a mass, pretty much a mass meditation of human thought, which I am told travels faster than the speed of light. Humans have the power, more power than they think, and they create light bodies outside of themselves. And they create gods outside of themselves that are just fully man-made. They are not anything other than the idea of something on a mass scale meditated by so many people that there can actually be apparitions of this. And so I hope people can recognize their own power to create ghosts and gods. And some of this stuff, some of these beings exist, though we didn't create them, but a lot of them actually are created by humans. And if we don't like our gods, we don't like the ghosts, we have the power. We can change our god from a male god to a female god, from a father to a mother, from a Mother Earth to a Father Earth, from a masculine sun to a feminine sun. And we have the ability to change all that. Instead of what most people think, like, oh, we caught a picture, this is confirmation that ghosts exist, or like you see an apparition of a god, this is confirmation Jesus exists. It's actually reverse sometimes. So many people believed that this existed, they created it, and the apparition came up based on thousands of people having the same thought process or beliefs. So it was actually reverse, like this stuff exists because we created it. You have a world where science and spirituality cross. On average, the human eye and the ears see a fraction of a percentage of the spectrum of light and sound. Your eyes can see around 0.03% of all the light in the spectrum. We classify people that can see a fraction of a percentage more than the average person as clairaudient, clairvoyant, having ESP, being psychic, or having the ability to be a medium between the physical and the spirit world. In reality, these people have tuned their bodies to see a fraction of a percentage more than what the average person can see. So maybe they don't see 0.03% of the light and sound around us, they see 0.05% of all the light and sound. And because we see so small of a fraction of the reality around us, it's not a question of whether the supernatural world exists. What we call the supernatural, there's a completely scientific explanation, but there's also a spiritual explanation at the same time. My point is that when people have supernatural phenomena, instead of wondering, do spirits exist? Do ghosts exist? Do demons and angels exist? Do shadow beings and light beings exist? It's a given that they exist, that we do not see most of the spectrum of light and sound around us, and cameras can sometimes capture a little bit of that. Mediums or people who have ESP can capture some of that. Machines can capture that. X-rays can capture some of that. Tuning forks are able to sense vibrations when they change, and you could feel like you're pressing against an invisible force. As a collective, I'm hoping that humanity moves past questioning whether there are spirits, ghosts, demons, angels, light beings, dark beings. Instead of being like, does this exist or not, they're past that. It's a given it exists, given that we only see a fraction of percentage. They're moving beyond questioning whether this is real and then into identifying the type of energy it is. Is this a spirit that has not crossed over from a human being? Is it a demonic presence? Is it an angelic presence? Is it an extra-terrestrial being or an interdimensional being? They're asking themselves, what type of spirit or ghost is this? On this Halloween night, I'm recording this on October 31st. This is a time period when the veil is very thin for many theoretical reasons. There could have been an asteroid that hit and had a mass extinction around this time. This is when we pass through an asteroid belt and have a potential for a lot of natural disasters. I'm pretty sure this is the time of year where the highest percentage of people die, because it's just natural, like when everything around you is dying, when the leaves are falling, the energy is death. And that's why the Scorpio tarot card is ruled by the tarot card of death, number 13. But we view 13 as a negative thing, as an unlucky sign. 13, the number 13 symbolizes liberation. So it symbolizes allowing things that are no longer functioning or serving you to end and making space for clearer ways, lighter ways, more life in the future. Halloween is not just an evil holiday where people perform satanic rituals. That is part of it. But because we have the power to create ghosts, Halloween is also a very spiritual day. There aren't just evil spirits that people need to distract themselves or protect themselves from. They can actually use this time to connect with their ancestors, ask for dreams, ask for help, basically call on spirit guides and benevolent spirits, and not just view this day as a day where they have to delude themselves. There's a completely scientific explanation for why the spirit world exists, but there is also a supernatural explanations that we will never be able to probably, with our minds, they're not made to see most of the spectrum of light and the sound. That would make us crazy. We would be schizophrenic, or it would be like tripping all the time. It would be too much information for our minds to process. A lot of psychics and ESP people, a lot of them experience suicides when they're younger, or being on drugs because they want to numb their abilities because it's too much for them to process, and it's hard for them to see that without anybody else around them seeing.
Things humans aren't supposed to see. Things you shouldn't have to see. My parents were normal. They did what most parents would do. They made it worse.
Here's another picture of me in a hospital doing a medical study. And this is a time period when I first started experimenting with sound healing. I remember being in a very peaceful, euphoric state, feeling very happy. And I took the picture because I felt so happy on my computer. When I looked at it later, I saw a light beam figure coming through the headboard. This one isn't as easy to see as my pictures from Salem, Massachusetts, but my neighbor at the time, I was living in Chicago, he was very spiritual. He was left-handed. I think left-handed people have the ability to, their minds are more creative, so they have the ability to see these things more easily than somebody who's very structured and black, white, and gray. It's easier for somebody who sees the world of color to spot an apparition. And so I don't know what kind of spirit this is, but I remember the state I was in was very happy and peaceful, so I think this figure was a good spirit or an angel. This leads me to the conclusion. Ghosts exist, spirits exist. Identifying what type of ghost or spirit is very important. And then also people understand they have a lot of power in creating their gods and ghosts. If enough people meditate on Jesus, even if their idea of Jesus doesn't exist as a long-haired man with a white robe, that figure is going to show up in people's dreams when they're in a half astral world state of mind. It's going to show up even if this isn't actually the original image of Jesus or Buddha. And we also have the ability to change our gods from a father god to a mother god, from a mother earth to a father earth, from a male masculine sun or light to a feminine sun and light. People have a lot of freedom and capability. If they would acknowledge their own power, they can change their gods, their ideas, their ghost. Just be mindful of the type of ghost and gods you create. Some of this stuff is real and it exists outside the human-made ideas, but a lot of times when people find apparitions of Jesus or even what they call the Virgin Mary, it's the same concept where you can take a picture in an area where a lot of people have meditated on this image. And this apparition will show up in the photo, it will show up in a video, but it's not always a confirmation that this stuff exists. It's the reverse. So many people were told this exists and they meditated on the idea and they created a light body. And this happens with the elemental system too. If you envision the sun as masculine or the earth as feminine, you will create that reality. And it's kind of a skewed and balanced reality where we only have a father, God, and a son. Where's the mother and the daughter? So people have the ability to change that. Their thoughts create a lot of power and light, and they need to be aware. I'm not here to tell people what is real and what is not real, but I am just pointing out that a lot of people don't realize that mass meditating, so many people mass meditating on an idea of something can create an apparition that appears in photos and videos. And it's not like it's fake, but it is not actually a god or a ghost in the sense that it was there before we meditated on it. It is actually created through the power of humanity.